I want to get to some free agency talk here because by the time you listen to this on Saturday, we'll just be a couple of days away from free agency, and I'll be talking about that next week. But there are some names out there I want to throw out there to you. So if you do hear these names come down the wire, maybe you say, oh, hey, Joey talked about them here on Sports Talk Chicago. I can wrap my head around it. I can continue to get maybe excited about the Chicago Bears. Let's start with the first one. The rumors are out there. Khalil Mack is a free agent, and some people are trying to tie him back to the Bears, saying that he would be interested. I mean, I'm sure this is good PR for Khalil Mack. I'm sure his agent has no problem putting this out there that he would like to return to Chicago. Khalil Mack did not leave on bad terms. And I don't know about you sports fans, but I absolutely love Khalil Mack. I would love nothing more than to dust off my Khalil Mack jersey, throw on my Christmas sweater that my wife got me that says Merry Mackmas. I'd love to do all that stuff. I think that would be great news. The rock and the hard place with this is pretty simple. The Chicago Bears got the money to do it. That isn't the problem. And Khalil Mack's people have put out there that he has no problem taking on a secondary role, which I think honestly is the perfect spot for him. A guy who doesn't play every single down, but on third down, he comes out, he's your sniper. Let's be honest, Bears fans. If you're going to give me this whole he doesn't play every snap thing, we shouldn't pay him money. You are the same people by the end of the season that only talk about sack numbers. So if Khalil Mack's out there on third down and he gets you 8 or 9 sacks, isn't that all that you care about? I think he'd be a great compliment to Montez Sweat. I think he'd be a great compliment that if the Chicago Bears did want to tackle a defensive end or defensive tackle in the draft at 10, 39, or 41, I think he would be a great half and half piece with one of those guys to kind of bring them along a little bit. My only thing is that, yes, we do have the money to spend. I just don't think he should be the first thing that we spend it on. So my question is that the Chicago Bears try and allocate dollars and attack other primary targets like maybe a Drew Dahlman at center. Will Khalil Mack's market be around long enough for maybe the Chicago Bears to rope back around to him? I could see a lot of teams that want to win playoff games, that want to compete for Super Bowls, try and go out and bring in a Khalil Mack on a short-term deal. So I just don't see Khalil Mack on speed dial number 1 through 5 for the Chicago Bears. Could they possibly, after a week or two, if he's still on the market, talk to him about bringing him in? I absolutely would have that conversation. And I just don't think this is a homer thing because I want to wear his jersey again. And I think it'll be great for people to talk about on social media. I think he could be actually a really productive, interesting player for the Chicago Bears. And if we're talking about just trying to raise the baseline level of this team, to build something, to get the good feelings going again in Hallis Hall, and when we talk about good feelings, we're talking a lot about wins, I think you could do way worse than Khalil Mack. So with the trade for Joe Thuney, the trade of Jonah Jackson, spending money on that offensive line, I do find it a little bit less likely as the days press on that Khalil Mack could possibly be an option, but I wouldn't wag my finger at it, and we'll see what happens. So having said that, if it isn't Khalil Mack, there are some other guys out there on the market. I'm going to try and rip through these pretty quickly. Just try and give you guys some intel on who these names are. So if you hear this name, or, you go into a 7-Eleven, what used to be a White Hen Pantry, and the guy says, hey, what do you think about the Bears signing this guy? At least you know who it is. And if the Bears do make some moves on these guys, we can learn a lot more about them as time moves on. My number one move right now on the defensive side of the ball is kind of a 1A, 1B. Both of these guys are definitely being linked to the Chicago Bears right now. I can confirm that. The first one is defensive tackle Milton Williams. Now, Milton Williams is going to be very, very pricey. And you're going to ask yourself, if you pull up his stats, this isn't going to make a lot of sense, right? Because he's never topped more than 5 sacks, or he's never had more than 10 QB hits in a season. But he is going to be a huge beneficiary of a very thin free agent class right now on the defensive line position. He's at his best when he's just rushing the passer, so he is a little bit of that Khalil Mack type. He's got that rare combination of power and quickness. He's 290 pounds. He's really good at walking guards and centers back into the quarterback. He doesn't always finish with more sacks. His 14.2% pressure rate ranked third among interior defensive linemen. So he is causing disruption if he isn't exactly winning on the play by bringing the quarterback down. And I think with him, you could bring him in and kind of do a 1-2 combo with him and Andrew Billings to kind of lock down the run game. His projection is tough. Philadelphia, they're incredibly deep on the defensive line, so he isn't an every snap kind of guy. So be honest with yourself. Are you paying $15, $20 million a year for a guy who's never really played more than 50 snaps in his career in Philadelphia? The same goes for Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat, why have I heard this name before? Oh, yeah, he had 2.5 sacks and interception in the Super Bowl. I mean, dude had a game of his life. All eyes on him. He's a 7-year veteran. Dude is about to get paid. He's just coming off a contract of 3 years, $42 million. And honestly, if we're being real about it, he could probably double that. I mean, he's young. He's got a lot in the tank. If you want a comp of money, last year, Danielle Hunter, who the Chicago Bears talked about possibly acquiring, Josh Sweat is just below that tier, in my opinion. Really capable run defender. He's got really good play strength. He's really long. He's really lanky. You got to like all out of the traits. And obviously he showed up in one of the biggest moments on one of the biggest stages. But again, it's going to be a guy who's incredibly, incredibly pricey. So I don't know, honestly. I keep saying this again. Last year it was offensive line. I'm telling you, if I'm reading the tea leaves, it's only in March. But I think the Chicago Bears, they're going to try and attack it in the draft, but spending big money on the defensive line, I just don't see it right now. And I do see the defense heading into next year is going to be a unit in transition. And I think it might have to get worse before it gets better. And I'm a person who never for 1 second thought that the defense last year was elite. I thought that they were maybe good or solid at best. A lot of people completely overrated them. And I do think that unit could even take a further step back next year, because they have to get the offense right. They just hired Ben Johnson, an offensive-minded coach. Caleb Williams, number 1 pick. $13 million in a head coach, number 1 pick. Just traded for Joe Thuney. Just traded for Jonah Jackson. You got Darnell Wright on there. Let's see what else they do. That is a lot invested right now in that unit. That unit absolutely has to work before anything else. So if you're asking yourself, man, I think those dudes are going to price us out of the market, is there anything on the other level that could possibly make sense? Khalil Mack is one of those players. Another guy who just got paid big dollars, but he's going to be hitting the market, you probably get him on a pretty good deal, is Javon Hargrave, 32 years old. He signed a 4-year, $84 million deal with the San Francisco Giants. He's about to be released. He's got a torn tricep, so there's a little bit of a health issue there. But look, Javon Hargrave was the belle of the ball a couple off seasons ago. He was the Eagles' most important defensive piece. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. He had 11 sacks a couple seasons ago, helped reach the 49ers, reach the Super Bowl in 2023, had 7 sacks in that regular season. I mean, he's definitely a player that if you get him on the short term, it might be a guy that just helps get you in there and provide some stability. Again, a veteran in the middle of other developing players. And I definitely think he's a guy that can help out Montez Sweat too as well. I want to talk a little bit in terms of offensive line, targeting more players. I honestly, other than Drew Dahlman, I don't really know if I see it unless we hear in the next couple of days Ryan Poles start to really push this whole Jonah Jackson's going to play center thing. And if he does start pushing that, I will be back on this show criticizing it because I think that's insane. But there was a guy, Will Fries from the Indianapolis Colts. He's a young player. He's 27 years old. Cool last name. Not going to deny it. Broke his leg last year, had a broken tibia. When he is on the field, he is an above average starter. He's a right guard by trade. We just signed 2 left guards. We don't have a center. We have a right tackle. Don't know what we're doing at left tackle. Certainly don't know what we're doing at right guard. I think he could be an option, but I also wonder whether teams desperate enough, like the Chicago Bears, offer him a multi-year deal and he just kind of gets priced out a little bit. Not sure if that's what's going to happen. I had him in number 7 of the Bears target list. Coming up next, Chase Young and the New Orleans Saints. Look, health issues. The medicals on him are bad. This would be a short-term deal. He's been on 4 teams, and he's not even 26 years old yet, but he played in every single game last season. And he played every single game for Dennis Allen last year. They seem to have a really good relationship. He was tied for 9th in the NFL in pressures with 66, 16th in the NFL in QB hits with 21. He did win a couple of times, only 5.5 sacks. I mean, there's a lot of people that are back and forth on this one. 1, nobody trusts the health. 2, nobody thinks that the money is going to align with what they think the production is going to be. 3, there are some people that saw a lot of tape on him last year that said, well, if you look at the tape, a lot of the damage that he did was against backup offensive linemen. Does that exactly align with paying him money to be an every down defensive end opposite Montez Sweat? The other one is, do we really want to replicate basically the Washington Commanders, or at the time, the Washington football team's defensive line of a couple years ago? Does that really make sense? Is that really what's going to get it done? Again, if I'm the Chicago Bears, if Dennis Allen wants Chase Young, the money better be right, and we'll swallow hard, and I'll be skeptical on it. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm targeting defensive line in the draft, and then I'm just trying to get some veteran, some headhunters, some mercenaries. The Javon Hargraves, the Khalil Macks, another guy, Hassan Reddick. Don't think a lot of people are talking about him. A lot of people are going to try to pretend that 2024 never happened with this contract dispute with the New York Jets. And he played terrible when he came back. I don't think he was in shape. Only 1 sack in 10 games. Before that, though, he had a 4-year run where he had 50.5 sacks. He's not necessarily a dude that's known to be good against the run, but again, he can get after the quarterback. So if you're telling me you're taking a defensive end or defensive tackle in the draft, you're pairing him with a guy like Hassan Reddick, letting Hassan Reddick feast in certain situations, I think it could be a good thing for the Chicago Bears. Rounding out the rest of this list, look, Tevin Jenkins, I don't know what to tell you. As it stands right now, I think Tevin Jenkins is not coming back on the Chicago Bears. If I was his agent, I would desperately try and get a multi-year deal for Tevin Jenkins. Chicago Bears would never offer anything more than a 1-year deal. I don't see it happening. If he was healthy, would he be kind of the perfect right guard to slide in right now on the Bears offensive line? Maybe, but again, it's just kind of a sad circumstance of what has kind of come to pass, and it's Tevin Jenkins just can't stay healthy. A couple other guys that are sort of interesting. We've talked a lot about Kevin Zeitler at right guard, turns 35. I think he's going to sit on the market for a little while, so I think the Chicago Bears can kind of go out there, read the tea leaves, see what they got, see what they can do, maybe make a decision on Zeitler based on what they want to do with Jonah Jackson and move forward from there. Other guys, too, as well, that I'm kind of interested in. I mean, a guy that's going to be sitting out there for a while, I think Brandon Scherf, 34 years old. He's a really good run blocker, can easily play right guard. I think you could bring him in. James Daniels from the Steelers, only 28 years old, coming off an Achilles. He'll probably sit for a little while. This is, for me, is all about kind of building some depth and some safe space around other guys that you might want to draft on the offensive line so they can come around and develop as slowly as possible and have some options on this offensive line. So all of a sudden, you're not playing the Bill Murrays of the world when injuries hit the team or ineffectiveness, or in the case of Nate Davis, he simply just kind of gives up. There are a couple running backs on the list. One of them I sort of like, the other one I don't like. I do believe right now, if you were telling me what my preference would be at 10, 39, 41 in the draft, the Chicago Bears also have the 63rd overall pick in the draft. I'm willing to accept that too as well. Some sort of combination of offensive line, defensive line, and I strongly believe the Chicago Bears need to upgrade and attack running back in free agency. There's 2 guys out there that maybe would grab some sort of casual interest. One of them I'm not so hot on. The other one I would be fine with, but I do think they're going to target them in the draft. I'll say it anyways. Aaron Jones is going to be a free agent out there. Look, a lot of people think that he's toast, but then he got 1,100 yards for the Minnesota Vikings last year. He had 1,500 all-purpose yards, 7 TDs, one of his higher marks. He plays hurt. He runs really, really, really hard. So if you're thinking about Ben Johnson and you're thinking of that combo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely that lightning. David Montgomery is definitely that pounding thunder. Aaron Jones will hit you, and he will run you over. if you've watched a Bears game before, Aaron Jones has ran over Bears players on a 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 8 to move the chains for a first down. I think they need to attack that position in the draft, but bringing in a guy like Aaron Jones isn't the worst thing in the world. If I had my pick, I would probably get rid of DeAndre Swift, even though I don't think they won't because the cap number won't make sense. But I would get rid of DeAndre Swift. I'd sign Aaron Jones, and I'd pair him with one of the faster, shiftier guys at the running back position in the draft. My personal favorite is Travion Henderson, who will definitely be there at 41 and could possibly even be there at 63. Aaron Jones and Travion Henderson, that is a combo I can deal with, and that is a Ben Johnson type of combo from the running game. The other one is Najee Harris. Now, there's a lot of numbers to like about him. 4 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. His longest run ever is only 37 yards. And just to bring you behind the curtain, my beautiful wife's a Steelers fan. I've watched almost every single snap of Najee Harris my entire life. The dude hits the hole so slow. If you want him in the red zone to score touchdowns, knock yourself out. But if you're looking for a guy who's going to do a little bit of everything for you, I just don't think Najee Harris has that type of burst. And if you don't believe me, his longest run ever is only 37 yards. When he gets a full head of steam and he hits the second level, he can run some guys over. He can do some good things. For anyone that wants to maybe link him to the Chicago Bears, I just wouldn't do it. So there are some names out there, Bears fans. If you're listening to this on a Saturday, having a wonderful weekend here in Chicago, free agency starts on Monday. You're going to hear some news about the Bears being active. They already are active in the trade market, and they're going to be spending some money. It's put up a shut-up time for Ryan Poles. It's definitely set the table, and let's see what we have in Caleb Williams' time. And if you're Ben Johnson, you want to hit the ground running. And clearly the mandate from Ben Johnson is we need one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, like the Detroit Lions, and they're making moves to try and get them as close to that as they possibly can. Now they need to be smart with how they allocate their dollars to bring as much talent as possible into this team. If the team gets a little bit older, bringing in some veterans in the defensive line, that's fine. Bears fans, you want productive right now. You want productive. These are all going to be short-term deals. They're all going to be able to roll themselves over. And with Caleb Williams on a rookie contract, a guy like Roman Dunze on a rookie contract, you got to try and strike now in this window, in this moment. Chicago Bears are going for it. The Tooney move I love. Jonah Jackson move, not so much. We'll see.